Just like that restaurant you haven't been to in a little while in your hometown, there are some cruise ships that I just, for whatever reason, just never get around to going on, and I really want to get back on them. When I was doing my YouTube live on Monday, which I do every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, one of our listeners, viewers, asked me which ship would I want to go on because it's been a while, and it really made me think because there are a lot of ships in Royal Caribbean's fleet, and I tend to gravitate towards the new ships, certainly when they come out, I'm all about them. And then, of course, we work in other cruises. I was just on Serenade of the Seas and Radiance of the Seas, which are two old small ships by, all starts with the imagination. I was on Utopia of the Seas a lot. So certain ships I go on a lot. Certain ships I work in there, but occasionally there are a few that kind of slip through the cracks a little bit. So today I came up with the 5 Royal Caribbean ships that I have not been on in a while and really should get back on board. Number one, and this is the first ship that came in my mind, is Adventure of the Seas. I have not been on Adventure of the Seas in 5 years. Adventure of the Seas I had not been on it ever. And then when Royal Caribbean resumed cruises in 2021, back when the ship sailed out of Nassau, I was on board that ship for the very first time, and I spent 2 weeks on board. And that was in 2021. And since then, I have not been back. Now, there haven't been a lot of changes or updates to Adventure of the Seas, which I think is part of the reason why it made this list here. And it also just ended up doing like these like oddball like 5 and 8 night itineraries all around. It's not a ship that's like been out in Asia or something like that. It's been out of my wheelhouse of like places I could go. It just hasn't come up as like, hey, there's an Adventure of the Seas sailing that's out there. I think Adventure, like a lot of the Voyager class ships, ends up doing these kind of like, I don't want to call them oddball itineraries, but not the 3 and 4 night itineraries and not the 7 night itineraries. 3 and 4 and 7s are easy to work into almost anybody's schedule, right? They're either weekend cruises or, hey, we're spending the week on a cruise, here we go. But that's not the case. Adventure's been doing these like, 5 night runs that go to like Falmouth and Grand Cayman and places like that. Again, not the most enticing place to go to. So for whatever the reason is, I've not been on Adventure of the Seas in a while, and I'd like to get back on board. Number two, and I didn't realize until my wife pointed out, I don't think I've been on Symphony of the Seas since certainly pre 2020. I think the last time I was on there was like 2018. It's really bizarre because number one, it's a big ship, Oasis class ship. And number two, it's one of Royal Caribbean's newer ships. Usually that combination is going to get me on board the ship a number of times. I mean, hello, Wonder of the Seas, Utopia of the Seas, I've been on those, a bazillion times. But Symphony, I have not been on board. I'm legitimately thinking it has not been since like 2018 on there, which is crazy because this is one of Royal Caribbean's newest ships. Part of it might have been Symphony of the Seas came out sort of right before the whole cruise industry shut down. And then since then, for whatever reason, I've not been back, probably because there's been so many other bigger, newer ships, right? We've had, Wonder of the Seas, Utopia of the Seas come out, and then we've had the Icon class. And I think that's probably the reason why. Now, Symphony also hasn't gotten any updates to it like Harmony just got. And I think that may play into it. Symphony's also been based a lot of cases in New York and in Galveston, which are two home ports I don't, usually sail out of. So that also was a mitigating factor with it. Ultimately, I'd like to get back on Symphony. In fact, to be fair, I mean, we looked for a cruise on Symphony of the Seas for our upcoming spring break cruise. I think the issue with Symphony is that she ended up either being based somewhere like Galveston or New York, which didn't really work out as well because we live in Florida. And so if we're going to do a spring break cruise with the family, it just makes a lot more sense to go out of a Florida port, especially because the itinerary Symphony was doing weren't that enticing either. That's another factor. When I look at any cruise to book, especially if it's a ship I've been on, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go, considering Symphony and Adventure and Mariner and Icon, whatever, I will look at the ship and the itinerary and see, what kind of stands out there. And for whatever reason, we just haven't found a good one that worked out for Symphony. And I'd love to get back on there. In fact, I might say it'd be right at the top of my list because it's just been such a long time since I've been on this particular ship. I don't think anything's like fundamentally different. Like, whoa, guys, Symphony of the Seas, the new best ship in the fleet. Far from it. I think what's really going to happen is just more like, oh, okay, I remember these little things here that stood out about that. And ultimately, I do try to, get around to as many ships as I possibly can. So anyway, Symphony, definitely, I think Symphony Adventure, the reason why they're at number 1 and 2 on this list, also because it's been a while, but also because I think they deserve to be on there. It's like my number 1 and 2 most critical to get back on board. Number 3 is Allure of the Seas, and I have it on this list because I have not been on there since its refurbishment last year. I've sailed on Allure of the Seas not too long ago. In fact, when Royal Caribbean first ever did a 3-night weekend sailing on an Oasis class ship, it was on Allure, fun fact. And I was on there for it. And we actually stayed in Star class, which is amazing. But anyway, I digress. The point is, I've not been back on Allure of the Seas since then. And, Oasis and Allure are two special Royal Caribbean ships. They were the original Oasis class ships. And now with the new upgrades to Allure, I think it's absolutely worth doing. Now, to be fair, I have put my money where my mouth is on this one, and I have Allure of the Seas booked for spring break of 2027. In fact, we originally had, I believe, Icon booked maybe for 27, and then we found Allure of the Seas to be available and much better price, certainly, because it's an older ship, and also it had a better itinerary. So we decided, you know what, YOLO, rebook it, and went for Allure of the Seas. So the good news is, I'll be back on there, and I'm very excited to see the change, especially having the Mason jar on board. One of my favorite, and not one of my favorite, my favorite bar on any Royal Caribbean ship. So we'll have that to look forward to. Also on my list, and also a ship I actually do have booked, but I've not been on there in a long time, is Odyssey of the Seas. And this one truly, it's funny. I talk about Odyssey a lot. Of all the ships on this list, Odyssey is the one I recommend to a lot of people. But I've not been on an Odyssey of the Seas in a number of years, and I think it's partially just because she spends half her time in Europe, and when she's in the U.S., she's she's only in New York. And again, this is my Florida bias showing. I don't travel up there all that much for a cruise that goes down to, Port Canaveral and Nassau and Coco Cay and back. That being said, I booked that exact itinerary for it, but I love Odyssey. It's my favorite of the Quantum class. Some of the changes they made on Odyssey are just like the classic example of small changes that have a big impact. You have the Seaplex being completely reworked. Adding a Playmakers there was one of the smartest ideas Royal Caribbean ever had. That was huge. They also redid the pool deck. There used to be the main pool and then the indoor pool and the solarium. Now they have the main pool and the solarium. That hasn't changed. But what used to be the indoor pool is now a secondary outdoor pool. And I think that's a really nice change. Plus, they have the lime and coconut aesthetic that goes with it. Really nice changes there. You have teppanyaki that was added on board that ship. So, a lot of nice little changes to Odyssey of the Seas. And it's probably, again, one of my favorite ships in the fleet. If you were to ask me for a ship to, go on for the first time, especially if you don't want to pay maybe the Icon class prices, but still get a new ship, Odyssey's fantastic. Man, Odyssey kind of, slipped under the radar. She came out immediately when cruises first restarted, and then like within a few months, Wonder of the Seas came out and completely overshadowed it, and that's been the end of it. But it's a great ship. I would love to get back on board. And then for number 5, I really thought, okay, what's a ship I've not been on in a while, and what's a ship that really, we're not talking like, okay, all just big ships here, because right now we've done 3 mega ships, 1 big ship on adventure. Anyway, Enchantment of the Seas is one I'd love to get back on board. It was funny because when I went on Enchantment in 2025, January, I was like, oh, but Enchantment, I'm going to hate this cruise ship. I've heard nothing but bad things about it. And you know what? I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So I would love, and I said at the time, I'd love to get back on board. And now it's been well over a year. I would love to get back. Now, Enchantment, I've been on the most recent of all these ships. I've been on Enchantment the most recent because it was less than 2 years ago. But I still think that knowing me, and I don't have anything booked on it, it might be another year or two before I get back on board. But I think it's a vastly underrated ship. I think Enchantment of the Seas is the kind of ship that you go on and you kind of, you go into it with probably low expectations, but it surprises you in a good way. And that was certainly the case for me because I thought Enchantment of the Seas was a ship that, delivered on that classic cruise experience. Not much more than that, but it hit all the notes it had to, right? It wasn't going to wow me, didn't wow me, but it just simply was like, you know what? This isn't nearly as bad as some people think it is. And I think part of the reason anybody has a bad experience on a cruise ship is because they go into it with the wrong expectations. And maybe, you may be pointing out, well, if you go in with really low expectations, then any ship is good. Fair. I would simply say I went into it knowing full well this is not an Icon class ship, it's not an Oasis class ship, it's not even a Voyager class ship. This is going to be a ship that has one specialty restaurant, that has, a smaller venues everywhere around it, but it has some nice touches. The schooner bar is massive on board. It's the only Vision class ship with Boleros, which is a nice touch as well. I thought the pool deck was fantastic. It has the Oasis bar, which faces out to the ocean, which my good friend Michael Poole loves. I think, while it's not going to wow anybody, you won't, if you watch our ship tour of Enchantment of the Seas here on our YouTube channel, you're not going to be like, wow, that's the ship I want to go on that. But listen, for somebody who's been there, done that, and wants to squeeze in another cruise, this is perfect for it. I wouldn't want to do a 7-night cruise on Enchantment, but hey, a long weekend on her, like a 4-nighter to Cozumel or a 4 and 5-nighter to Cozumel and Costa Maya, sign me up. I'd love to do that. So there you go. 5 ships that I've been on, but I haven't been on in a long time, and I need to get back on board. And those are probably the top 5 I'd love to get back on there. Obviously, other ships within the fleet I've been on there more recently, like Mariner of the Seas and some other favorites that I love going on. I mean, I probably could have added Navigator to this list. I've not been on Navigator in a hot minute, but anyway, these 5 really jumped out to me. All right, friends, time to answer listener emails. The emails that you sent me to answer right here on the podcast. You can always email me your questions, matt@RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, Matt, M-A-T-T, @RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Our first email is from Madison. My husband and I cruise often with Royal Caribbean. Just got off our 8th since December 2024, and even got our families hooked. Probably booked too. Anyway, I've been listening to your show since we booked our first one. We plan on visiting Greece next year and want to hear your thoughts on doing cruise versus staying on the islands. It's been my number 1 bucket list destination since the first time I watched Mamma Mia, so I want to do it right. I keep going back and forth with so many pros and cons, so I'd love your input. Thanks so much. This is a great question. I mean, you want to go to Greece, but the question is, do you want to spend like just a week there and focus purely on being in, one island or 2 islands there or whatever, versus going on a cruise? I think... And now listen, I'm biased, so for anybody listening, well, Matt's going to recommend a cruise regardless. Yes, you're right. But here's what I'll say this as objectively as I possibly can. The advantage of going on a cruise to Greece is you get a taste of what each island has to offer. You're coming into it from hey, you love Mamma Mia, thus you must love Greece. And this probably won't come as a surprise to you that what you see in Hollywood isn't necessarily what you see in real life, and there are some realities to crowding, prices, a lot of things out there. You may love it. You may end up loving it. The point is, going on a cruise gives you a taste, a glimpse of it. You get a day there to enjoy each particular island. Maybe you find out which island you actually like, and basically you get there, and number 1, you either confirm that you do love the Greek islands, or maybe you don't, and number 2, you figure out which island you really prefer, because there are a lot of them. And the advantage of a cruise is it's like a taste test. It's like when you go to a bar and you order a flight of beers. The point of ordering a flight of beers is you get to sample small, little taste of each one to figure out which one you really love, and then you order the big, pint of beer of the one you prefer the most. And that's essentially how I would look at it there. So take the cruise, figure out what which island you like and don't like, and then plan a land trip if you decide that's really where you want to spend a lot more time. Next email is from Charlie. How can I find out how many other ships will be at Kukuki along with our ship? Now, Royal Caribbean doesn't provide this information. You have to go to third-party websites. Cruise Timetables is one of them. There's a few others like cruiseTT.com. These websites are third-party aggregators. They're not always 1,000% accurate. They are, I would say they're mostly accurate. I would say they're like 98% accurate, something like that. But you need to keep in mind that, don't go into it like, oh, the website said it must be true. There have been situations in which I've looked at the schedule, gone on the ship, gotten to the port, and that ship isn't there. This is especially the case when itineraries change, like Royal Caribbean puts out an itinerary and then updates the itinerary. I mean, these websites rarely, if ever, update it. So, but usually it's pretty accurate. Again, the situations I'm talking about are more the outliers, but those are good resources for you. Our next email is from Chicago GP. Love the blog, podcast, YouTube channel, and everything else you put out there. Thanks for keeping the cruise content coming every week. Our family is selling on Harmony in January, and it'll be our first time staying in 3 Star Class suites. We normally purchase the ultimate dining package, but since specialty dining is included with Star Class, we're trying to figure out the best approach to getting our preferred dining times and days. Because we're traveling with a larger group, we'd like to secure specific restaurants and dining times if possible. Is there any advantage to making and paying for specialty dining reservations in advance through the cruise planner to lock in our preferred times? If so, would those charges be refunded or credited once on board, or would it be better to just wait and work through the Genie even though we have a group of 8 people? This is a great question because the reason why this is a tough question is, and I've been in this situation, is with Star Class, with the Royal Genie, everything's included. The problem is the Genie doesn't email you until about a week before the cruise. Now there's been a change to the Star Class program. I don't love it, but this is probably your best bet. Chicago GP, you'll get an email much sooner than that from they call them the Shoreside Genies. The Shoreside Genies are somebody at Royal Caribbean headquarters on land who is supposed to help coordinate plans like this. Basically, they're upselling, but they're kind of upselling some things. Basically, you want to book a cabana, you want to make dining reservations, things like that. They can take care of that, and then they pass it off to your real genie when you get within a week. So basically, you don't have to wait for the genie to contact you a week out. Blah, 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 blah. Number one, you have to wait for the Shoreside Genie to email you. In my experience, it's like a month or two ahead of time, maybe 3, but not much more than that. Number two, and this is why I kind of hesitate with this, I've had not great experiences with the Shoreside Genie, meaning I've told the Shoreside Genie, I want this, I get it on board the ship, and the genie has no idea what I'm talking about because they didn't get anything from the Shoreside Genie. Again, that's my experience, probably an outlier situation, but that's like your next best option. Could you do what you're suggesting? Make pay for dining reservations through a dining package, and then have it all refunded? Yes, that would absolutely happen. It's a headache in the sense that you have to pay for something that you're going to get refunded later on, so it's money you're spending that you'll have to wait for it to come back to you. It's a bit of the genie will take care of all the billing. It's not an issue, but it's like. Here's the reason why I would say I probably wouldn't, if it were me, I wouldn't go to that length, is I've had really good experiences with the genie being able to get the dining reservations at times I want. Now, you are going with a large group, and that's different when you have 8 people versus, 4, but you'd be surprised. Number one, the reservations on the website are a subset of the main reservations. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on a cruise ship, with where pre-cruise a certain restaurant is sold out online, and then bam, you get on board and it's like, oh, this restaurant's available. Now, the bigger issue would be, and I forget, you're going on Harmony. Okay, so there's no supper club, there's no Royal Railway. Probably the restaurant that'll be the most contentious, the most booked up will be Hibachi, but it's not what it used to be. I don't think you'll find an issue with that. I'd be pretty surprised if you ran into an issue with the genie and getting reservations for that. But number one, I would rely on the Shoreside Genie. Let them know when they email you. Again, should be about a month, 2 or 3 months beforehand. You'll get the email and they kind of welcome you to the program, and then that's your opportunity to make a reservation. The other thing, as I'm thinking about this, I wonder if you could, it's probably again too early, to email the Suite Concierge and see if they can coordinate that for you. The reason why I say it's too early is, when you're not in Star Class, the Suite Concierge will email you 3 or 4 days before the cruise, and they can make the dining reservations for you. I'd be concerned the Suite Concierge wouldn't be able to make a reservation we're talking, this episode's coming out in June. We're talking about a January cruise, so, 7 months out. I doubt they have the ability to make a reservation that far out. So probably not. I'd wait for the Shoreside Genie and hope for the best that your experience is better than mine. I think it will be Chicago GP. I wouldn't worry too much about it. In fact, even if you were to get to all the point of saying, you know what, not doing any pre-planning, I'm going to show up to this cruise with 8 people and we're going to get dining reservations, I truly believe you can. You'd be surprised how helpful the genies can be. Next email's from Kirk. Hi, Matt. Really enjoy your podcast. My wife and I just started cruising. We see the value in choosing a cruise line and sticking to it to building loyalty points. My question is, what makes Royal Caribbean your cruise line of choice? Thanks for all your reviews and insights. Oh, man, how much time you got? Really, the reason why I like Royal Caribbean is couplefold. Number one, they're a family cruise line, and they're a multi-gen cruise line. Having kids, it always appealed to me that there's things for everybody to enjoy. It's not a cruise line that leans towards adults only. It's not one that goes super kid friendly, although they are very kid friendly. It's a really good cross mix of all of it. And I think that's a really important thing. So that way, there's something for my kids to enjoy, something for me to enjoy. There are things that my parents can enjoy. It's not an experience that you look at it and you see, this cruise line is for old people, this is for family. It's a family cruise line, but there's a lot to enjoy regardless of age, and I really believe that. In other cruise lines, it's not the case. Number 2, Royal Caribbean is an industry leader. I believe they are the most innovative cruise line in the industry, and other cruise lines are always playing catch up for it, and for what that's worth, that's important to me. It's kind of why you might lean towards a particular brand of phone or car or whatever, because you recognize this is the one that this is the difference maker. It reminds me a lot of Apple back when Steve Jobs was running it, right? and you had like, the new iPhone was always like bam, and then all the other companies trying to catch up to it. Similar experience there. And so that's a big part of it. The value has changed a lot for the Royal Caribbean, but I still believe for a family cruise line, I mean, number one, they're way cheaper than Disney Cruise Line. Disney Cruise Line's prices are insane. Although Royal Caribbean can go in Star Class and find insane prices too, but I digress. And they're also not the cheapest cruise line. They're not, Carnival or MSC that'll come out the cheapest. I think it's a good balance of what you pay for versus what you get, and the experience overall. Embarkation, the way Royal does it, I truly believe is the right way, and that's why I lean in their direction. Next, we have an email from... Our next email is from Rayana. Hi, Matt. Longtime listener, first-time writer-inner. Thanks for your videos. My husband and I enjoyed our 4 Royal Caribbean cruises so far. We're looking forward to our 5th in August on Wonder. When it comes to seafood, my husband is an ecological disaster. He doesn't mind me saying this and takes pride in the number of crab legs he can eat in one sitting. Hooked seafood caught his eye. Rumor has it he may be able to enjoy more than one lobster at Hooked. Is that true? We like specialty dining options and have been offered seconds at other venues like Wonderland, but I know lobster plays different by different rules, especially in the main dining room. So a second or third or fourth lobster tail would make the extra expense worth it. Thanks to your amazing content. As far as I know, yes. In fact, I've gone to Hooked, Rayana, and ordered multiple entrees. So I'm not aware of a prohibition against it. I know exactly what you're talking about. And in the main dining room, yes, that would be an issue there. Ecological disaster. I'm kind of laughing at that still. So I would say this much. At the very least, you can make the reservation, go on board the ship, just double check with the, you stop by the restaurant before your reservation. Be like, hey, can we order more than one entree? And just double check it. But I believe the answer is yes. I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't. So yeah, there you go. And last email is from Gene. I love this email. Maybe one for the Q&A section of the podcast. Mastradamus' guest for Oasis 7 name. Serenity? Bring back Splendor? Mastradamus. It's like Nostradamus, but Matt, get it? Okay. The name for Oasis 7. I mean, listen, if somebody went back to listen to all the episodes that I ever predicted names of cruise ships, I'm sure I don't think I've gotten one yet. Maybe I've got one. I don't know. It's hard to know because I've been a big fan of ever since Legend of the Seas got named. It's like, they can bring back old names? Great. I'm not sure they'll do that. I mean, the Oasis class, the name pattern kind of went out the door almost immediately. You've got Oasis and Allure, cool. Harmony and Symphony, those are like musical names. Wonder, Utopia, are they related? I don't know. You can go to some of the past trademarks that Royal Caribbean has filed for ship names, keeping in mind, by the way, that Royal Caribbean uses those trademarks as cover fire. They'll register like 10 names, one of which will actually be the real name, 9 of which are just purely thrown out there to just confuse people. So it's hard to know that any of those are really, useful. I mean, I've always liked Metropolis of the Seas, but, that's just my thing. So guess the name: Oasis, Utopia, Wonder. I mean, it would be great if they brought back like Splendor of the Seas. Would be a great name for an Oasis class ship, certainly, and I'd love that name. I might steal that idea. Certainly, Empress of the Seas is one that I'd still like. I mean, if they're ever going to bring back a name of a cruise ship that Royal Caribbean's used before, I would love for it to be that one. But I probably would say I don't think they'll reuse a name here. I think Legend was, until they do it again, I think it's more of an outlier. I think it just made sense for that particular legend, hero, icon, legend, right? Star. Anyway, I think in this case they'll go for something that's not in any way related to the names of things. So, do I think it'll be, Metropolis? No, I think it's too wordy. I doubt it. And I think maybe the people at DC Comics might have a problem with that. I think it might be something like, Apex of the Seas or something like that. I could see that one going. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I have many talents. Predicting what Royal Caribbean may or may not do is not one of them. So thank you to everybody for checking out this episode of the Royal Caribbean Blog Podcast. Of course, you can always email me your questions, Matt, M-A-T-T, at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, Matt at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Until next time, I'm Matt. We'll talk again real soon.